When you were coming into the market, did you have any struggles with trying to convince consumers to buy another oven? Because I'm sure right off the bat, most people might be like, I already have an oven, just send me the food. Like, what did that look like trying to educate them on like, well, you actually really need this to make it easy?
It's a great question. We definitely had if you build it, they will come mentality. And that was not true. We launched in the middle of 2017 and we had a pretty splashy launch. We were in the Wall Street Journal. It was a great story and we didn't sell that many units. And that should have been our first warning sign that something was up about how we were marketing the product. But it took us about 2 years to really figure it out. So it was not an overnight couple tweaks here and there and we cracked the nut. It was a lot of testing, learning, failing. In hindsight now, I know how we figured it out and we could have done it much faster, but it took us a while to really get there. And eventually we did it by late summer of 2019, we had figured out how to market it. We had figured out how to price it and the growth really took off, but it was a long journey to get to that point.
Okay, I'm sure, people listening are like, well, how did you figure it out? There's probably one person listening right now. They're like, I'm at that stage. I just had a big splashy cover on wherever and I didn't sell anything. Like, what did that look like for you guys? What were you doing back then versus what did you figure out to then be where you are today?
We tried a lot of things. We tried selling in different channels, whether that was on different digital channels. We tried a pop up. We tried B2B, so selling into hotels and offices. We tried targeting a very specific customer. We were going after new parents. We tried a lot of product things. We're like, oh, the product needs to get better. We need a new oven, or we need more meals on the menu, or app has to do more things. And none of those things really worked. Like they certainly helped, but they didn't really work. And the product stuff really came in handy once we had figured it out, because then the product was built out and pretty mature. Really how we figured it out was going back to marketing fundamentals. And we went and interviewed some of our best customers. And we went into their homes. We looked at how they were using the Tovala, where they were putting it, how they talked about it, how they described it to their friends, what they had replaced with it, like really tried to get into their heads. And then we also went and talked to a lot of people that had been to our website, but not purchased. So these were folks that had spent 5 or 10 minutes on the site, browsed it, but ultimately didn't decide to buy. Clearly we had made an impression on them. They'd spent enough time on our website that something resonated, but they couldn't get over the hump. And so we incentivized them and got on the phone with them too, to really understand why. And we heard a lot of the same things from each group kind of separately. And that kind of drove our roadmap for 9 months of things that we needed to change in terms of our positioning, in terms of how we talked about the product, in terms of how we priced it, in terms of the content that we used on the website. And a lot of those things came together in early fall, late summer of 2019 and started to drive much faster growth for us.
Yeah. Were there any pieces that were surprising when you were talking to your favorite customers or talking to people that bounced off your website? I mean, was anything really that surprising or were you like, oh yeah, these are pretty obvious things. We just kind of missed it because we focused on something else at the time?
Yeah, in hindsight, they were pretty obvious. The three biggest barriers to adoption, number one was price, which we knew, but we hadn't focused on it, which was a huge mistake. The way it was priced at the time was that you could get the oven alone for $349, or you could get the oven for $249 if you committed to ordering 100 meals. So it was a really big commitment we were asking from people. And that had been in place for almost 2 years because of where the business was at shortly after we launched. And we hadn't reevaluated it. We really should have. So that was the first biggest one. And so we went and tested a whole bunch of different prices coming out of that. The second was trust. So people didn't believe that it was as good as we were saying. They're like, oh, I just don't believe this. Like it sounds too good to be true. We kept hearing that. And so the way we tried to tackle that one was a lot more testimonials and a lot more video and better photography. And then the third was, I don't get it. Like, how does it work? Is the food fresh? Is it frozen? Can I use the oven for my own food? A whole suite of questions that we weren't doing a good job of answering. These weren't new questions, but it was clear that we weren't answering them well. And so that and the trust one drove an entire redesign of our website and all of our emails in order to try to tackle those better.
Wow. Okay. So are you now at a place where you're constantly doing these surveys and making sure that you're staying in touch with your customers or maybe your future customers?
We do a lot more surveys now. We have someone whose job is purely customer insights. And so all she does is talk to customers, and our product team is regularly talking to customers. Our growth team is doing some talking, a lot more watching and understanding user behavior on our website and things like that. We're also constantly testing a lot of these things in a way that we weren't before.
Hey, thanks for watching. This segment was made possible by our friends at Salesforce Commerce Cloud. If you're looking for the #1 platform for all your commerce needs, go check out salesforce.com/commerce. And don't forget to subscribe below and tap that little bell icon so you can stay on top of all the amazing new segments and full episodes that we'll be putting out over the coming year with some of the best and most influential commerce leaders out there.